Weeks passed, and Daniel's life slowly began to stitch itself back together. The work at the construction site was grueling, but it was honest. Every evening, his muscles ached, yet the ache reminded him he was moving forward. With every paycheck, no matter how small, he saved a little. He rented a modest room, nothing more than 4 walls and a bed, but to Daniel, it felt like a castle, his first roof since losing everything. One crisp afternoon, after finishing his shift, Daniel walked through the same park where he had once felt invisible. His eyes fell on a man sitting alone on a bench, shoulders hunched, eyes empty with despair. The scene pierced his heart. It was a reflection of who he had been not long ago. The man's clothes were worn, his hands shaking from hunger. Daniel paused, his heart pulling him forward. Without hesitation, he went to a nearby food stand, bought a hot meal, and carried it back. Placing it gently in the stranger's hands, Daniel said, "This isn't charity. It's a reminder that you still matter." The man looked up, stunned. His lips trembled as tears welled in his eyes. He tried to speak, but words failed him. He only nodded, clutching the meal as though it were life itself. Daniel felt something shift inside him, a quiet understanding. That small sandwich given to him weeks earlier had ignited his will to rise again. Now, he was passing that same spark to another soul lost in the dark. As he walked away, Daniel realized that resilience wasn't just about surviving. It was about remembering that even in brokenness, one could still be the light for someone else. The afternoon sun began to sink lower, casting long shadows across the park. Daniel sat motionless on the same worn bench, his stomach aching from hunger. He hadn't eaten a proper meal in 2 days. He tried to convince himself that he was strong enough to endure it, but the truth was, every minute felt heavier than the last. As he lowered his gaze, ashamed of his own condition, a small voice interrupted his spiral of thought. "Excuse me, are you hungry?" Daniel looked up and saw a little girl, no more than 7, holding half a peanut butter sandwich in her tiny hands. Beside her stood her mother, smiling gently, her eyes filled not with pity, but with warmth. For a moment, Daniel couldn't speak. He wanted to refuse, to tell them he would be fine. But his body betrayed him. His hands shook as he accepted the sandwich, whispering a quiet, almost broken, "Thank you." It was just bread and peanut butter, simple, ordinary. Yet as he took a bite, it felt like more than food. It was recognition. Proof that he wasn't invisible. The little girl giggled and ran back to her mother, who nodded kindly before walking away. They didn't stay, didn't ask questions, didn't pry. They gave what they could, and that was enough. Daniel sat there, the taste of that small sandwich lingering on his tongue, and something stirred inside him. For the first time in weeks, he felt a spark, a reminder that kindness still existed, and maybe, just maybe, life hadn't given up on him after all. That single act of compassion planted a seed of hope. He didn't know it yet, but it was the moment that would begin to change everything. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. The park grew quiet, the laughter of children fading, the last echoes of traffic dying down until only the whisper of wind remained. He sat beneath a dim streetlight, staring at his notebook, its pages worn, edges curled from years of use. Once, it held work schedules and reminders for his family. Now, it was empty, waiting. The half sandwich he had eaten earlier still lingered in his thoughts. Not the food itself, but the kindness behind it. A stranger had seen him, acknowledged him, and shared something she didn't have to. That moment replayed in his mind like a spark refusing to die out. He opened the notebook, gripped the pen with trembling hands, and began to write. "Tomorrow," he whispered to himself. "Tomorrow, I try again." Line after line, he wrote small goals: find day work, even if it paid little. Save every dollar. Find shelter, no matter how modest. Piece by piece, he would build a new life. The night grew colder, but Daniel felt something stirring in his chest that he hadn't felt in weeks: resolve. He realized waiting for rescue would only keep him chained to despair. But if he could take even the smallest step forward, he could begin climbing out. As dawn broke, painting the horizon with shades of gold, Daniel closed the notebook and tucked it safely against his heart. He stood from the bench, stiff and weary, yet somehow lighter. That morning, he walked to a nearby construction site and asked for work. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't permanent. But it was a start. And for the first time in a long time, Daniel's steps carried not just weight, but direction. Daniel had always been a man of quiet determination. For years, he rose before dawn, laced up his work boots, and poured his heart into every task. He wasn't wealthy, but he was proud of the life he was building, proud of the stability he gave his family. But life has a way of unraveling even the strongest threads when we least expect it. In the span of a single week, everything collapsed. First came the news that the company he worked for was shutting down. After 2 decades of loyalty, his position no longer existed. He searched desperately for answers, for another door to open quickly, but nothing came. Then, like a cruel echo, the landlord's notice arrived. Without steady income, he could no longer keep his home. Now, Daniel sat on a cold park bench, his hands trembling as he clutched an old photograph of happier days, his wife smiling, his little boy resting on his shoulders. He traced the edges of the photo as though it were the last fragile thread tying him to a life that once felt secure. Around him, the city moved on, indifferent to his quiet despair. People hurried past, eyes fixed on their own lives, while Daniel felt himself becoming invisible. For the first time, a thought crept into his mind: had life forgotten him? The air was heavy with silence, broken only by the rustle of leaves above his head. The bench felt harder with every passing hour, pressing the weight of reality deeper into his chest. His heart ached, not just from the loss of work or shelter, but from the haunting fear that his best days were already behind him. It was a moment of breaking, but also, unknowingly, the beginning of something new. The sun rose higher in the sky, casting a warm glow over the park as Daniel walked away from the bench. For the first time in months, his chest felt light, not from the absence of hardship, but from the presence of purpose. He had survived the storm, but more importantly, he had discovered something far greater than survival: the power of giving back. Every step he took felt different now. He no longer saw himself as a man defeated, but as someone reborn through resilience. He thought about the little girl's sandwich, the kindness that had pulled him back from the edge. A single act, so small, had rippled outward, changing not only his life but now another's as well. Daniel paused and looked toward the horizon where the city stretched out before him, busy, alive, unpredictable. It was the same world that had once taken everything from him, but now, he saw it differently. It was not an enemy. It was a canvas, waiting for him to paint new beginnings. He smiled softly, his notebook tucked under his arm, filled now not with despair but with plans, hopes, and dreams he once thought lost. Life had tested him, broken him, and nearly silenced him. Yet here he was, standing tall again. Daniel knew he would still face challenges. Life would never promise ease. But he also knew something more powerful: even the smallest act of compassion could light a fire in the darkest night. As he turned toward the bustling streets, ready for whatever came next, his heart whispered a truth that would stay with him forever: sometimes, it takes losing everything to discover what truly matters, and sometimes, a new beginning starts with kindness.